Welcome to Thoughts Match. We're here to explore into the most pressing global issues. In today's episode, we will discuss the ongoing genocide occurring in Gaza with our special guest, Dr. Bakhach, an expert in Middle Eastern affairs. We'll examine Gaza before and after October 7, Israel's military strategy, and the geopolitical shift that has followed. We'll discuss the dynamics between Hamas and the Palestinian Authority, the brutal genocide campaign taking place right now in Rafah, and the influence of U.S. leverage over Israeli action. We'll also analyze Hezbollah's involvement, Iran's involvement, the international community's response, and the broader implication for regional stability. Join us as we uncover the multifaceted dimension of this genocide and its ongoing impact on global geopolitical issues. Now, Dr. Bakhach, I just want to kick in right away. Before October 7th, how did Israel manage this situation in Gaza, and what was their primary objective in Gaza?
Thank you for having me. I appreciate having this chance to discuss these hot issues ongoing now in Gaza. And of course, what's happening in Gaza is directly linked to the whole region and the Middle East. And to address your question, how was Israel managing? Of course, you have heard the famous mowing that was kind of summarized in a way the Israeli policy toward Gaza, mowing. Every now and then, the IDF, Israeli army, would stage a limited operation in Gaza to mow the grass, to commit few murders, killing hundreds or dozens. So, and indeed, what's happening today in Gaza is not new. It's not the first of its kind. It is first in the sense that it has gone for so long. That's true, but there has been previous before in 2014, 2012, 8, etc. So always that was a policy pursued by the Israeli authority. Every now and then they would, engage in this limited operation. That was before October 7. October 7 kicked in a different calculus. The magnitude of the event was obviously much bigger. And in this time, what happened October 7 was that Hamas took the initiative and carried on the attack on October 7, which opened up effectively, for that matter. October 7, you could say, in a way, is similar to 9/11. So it's a big event of big magnitude. And then Israeli government led by Netanyahu decided to make the most out of it, to try to, in a way, achieve the old dream of cleansing the whole of Palestine from its Arab population.
All right, thank you. So this goes up to the next question. Now, mowing the lawn, which has become famous now, that this has been an Israeli directive to clean house or show the people in Gaza, we're in control. Now, when they mow the lawn, it's been, 2003, which is significant amount of people being butchered. But to this scale, where it is, it's ethnic cleansing. I mean, this is what, human rights experts are saying. These are people who have come out, from Human Rights Watch group saying this is genocide occurring at this scale. And you mentioned this is to ethnically cleanse the auto-populate. Is this the motive, true motive right now to just eliminate, the entire auto-population, or are they just in a conundrum where they don't know what they're doing?
This brings us to, we are now delving deeper into the issue of what happened in October 7. As I mentioned, in a sense, the Israeli leadership took October 7 to be the equivalent of 9/11, which means that now no barrels hold. They can do, there is no limit to unleash their war machinery. But then again, ultimately, all the ongoing fighting after October 7 is, at the end, is directly linked to the political stage, because any military operation, whether limited or bigger level, at the end it will end up by having some sort of political aims to be achieved. So the question here is, what are those political aims to be achieved? Today, even like an hour ago, I was reading a statement by Secretary Blinken. He said that ultimately Israel, and aside, okay, he said Israel has every right to destroy Hamas, this is a given, but then again, Israel is responsible to minimize the civilian casualties, and then again, Israel has to come up with the famous the day after. So, and if you notice, if we connect the dots, this question of the day after has been there all along, from day one. From day one, when Biden went to Israel, he mentioned this to Netanyahu. He said, "Look, he said you have to accept the two-state solution." And this point has been repeated over and over by various American officials, whether it's Biden, Blinken, Austin, Sullivan, etc. So, and again, this is the big question here. Okay, the fighting, the military fighting will end at one point. Fine, and then what's arrangement? What's a political arrangement for the day after? This question Netanyahu has been evading and avoiding. He's betting that his configuration for the war in Gaza is endless, because of course, and then again he has his own personal consideration, which is he knows that he will be held responsible. There will be calculation and responsibility. He will be held responsible for what happened on October 7. And so that's what he's trying to avoid. He's trying to appear a tough guy who can stand up and say no to the two-state solution. But for how long will he be able to maneuver around this big issue that will confront him no matter what, sooner or later?
We've seen from Ehud Barak, former Prime Minister of Israel, or not a fan of Netanyahu, and they brought this up, saying that Hamas was being funded, had the funding come through, and Netanyahu gave the green light for the funding as a way to wedge between the Palestinian Authority and Hamas. A lot of people may not know the background or the difference between these two entities and how this came about. That it's supposed to be one Palestinian, state, so-called state, but there's two different governing factions. If you give some little historical background, and why was it Netanyahu's advantage to support Hamas as a wedge against the Palestinian Authority and really a wedge for this two-state solution?
Exactly, because basically what Netanyahu, yes, this is now, it's an open secret. It's no secret no more. The fact that Netanyahu allowed the Qatari government to pump in millions and millions of dollars to Hamas. Netanyahu had full knowledge of this. And even he openly stated back in 2019, he said that what he was looking for was, in a way, to maintain the division between the Gaza and the West Bank. In the West Bank, in Ramallah, you have the Palestinian Authority led by Mahmoud Abbas. Mahmoud Abbas, he claims in the name of the PLO that he is the sole legitimate representative of the Palestinian people. This is why Netanyahu had every interest in allowing the Qatari support of Hamas. So at the end, whenever the issue of political solution for Palestine comes up, he will say, "Okay, look, guys, these guys, this Palestinian have a conflict between themselves. There is no leader, there is no national leader. So sorry, to whom should I talk to?" So that was consideration behind Netanyahu, and at the same time adopting the mowing the lawn policy or approach. So that's what's happened. So ultimately, he because the central theme to Netanyahu was to prevent and to kill any notion of two-state. The word two-state is totally out of his dictionary, and he said it openly and publicly that I am a leader who can say no. I am the only leader in Israeli political class who can say no to the two-state solution. And this is the crux of the whole matter.
Thank you. I want to go back, going back to is there a real objective behind Israel's military genocidal campaign? Is there an objective? And if there is, how successful is the campaign? I mean, this is unbelievable. 8 months or 9 months of an ongoing genocide, and the objective was to quote unquote, destroy Hamas's leadership, which the world has says they have completely failed. There, as many have said, they're creating more Hamas. Hamas has shown up in the north, so their military objective, what they state, doesn't look like it's being met. What's your thought on what their true military objective is?
Yeah, this is interesting point, and many observers and analysts have noted that destroying Hamas is being a deception, a misleading apparent objective of the military genocide ongoing in Gaza. There are many people out there who maintain that the real goal is to push the people in Gaza, to push them out into immigration under the pretext of fighting Hamas. Now, nobody, there is no way that fighting Hamas will justify this mass slaughter and genocide at large scale, destroying everything. Hospitals, mosques, schools, even UNRWA camps, etc. So ultimately, the hidden goal here is to, in a way, make Gaza inhabitable. So pushing the people to immigrate. So in other words, it's a shot at cleansing. It's ethnic cleansing. Making life in Gaza so hellish that to push people to immigrate. And many Israeli officials had stated and have said that let Egypt receive the Gazan. And Egypt, as we know, took a firm line, said no, we will not receive the Gazan. The American administration policy announced police position was that they're against expulsion, and they're against Israeli occupying Gaza. They're against Israeli kind of creating a buffer zone or encroach. So faced by all of this kind of political no, then this is a dilemma of Netanyahu. And the question here, by the way, we have to draw the whole picture. The central issue at stake here is the question of the two-state solution. And when it comes to the two-state solution, we have to take into consideration the larger Israeli public opinion. Meaning, if we now put aside Netanyahu, if we replace Netanyahu, it's difficult to bring to the Israeli government another leader who will accept the two-state solution. So the issue is bigger than the person of Netanyahu. It's a whole far-right Jewish extremist who reject any notion of two-state. Even last few days ago, the Israeli newspaper Ma'arif published the result of a public opinion survey they did, and 64% they said no, they will not hear about anything called two-state solution, and this will be published by the Jerusalem Post within days. Jerusalem Post will have some conference, and this will be released, the result of this public survey. So then again, what we are talking about here is that the whole mentality among the far-right Jewish Zionist settlers in Palestine who reject anything called two-state solution, no matter how remotely. Because if you recall, Biden, he end of April, he made a phone call to Netanyahu, and then Biden announced that I've discussed with Netanyahu the two-state solution, and he accepted it. The next day, Netanyahu said, no, I did not accept it, will not accept it. Then Biden came to kind of repair his previous statement. He said, well, there are many concepts of a state. In other words, when he's saying for a Palestinian state, but there are many ways of having state, without army, without. So, he was trying to kind of beautify the concept or the idea of two state, which was totally rejected by Netanyahu and those behind him.
One thing was interesting you mentioned is the Israeli public opinion. So initially it was, this is Netanyahu and his right-wing government that's the problem. And it's becoming more apparent, whether it be polls or just looking at the psychotic examples of when they're shutting down humanitarian aid, stopping the trucks, destroying it, celebrating massacres taking place just in Rafah in the past few days. It's not, I mean, it seems like the issue is not Netanyahu, but the entire Israeli society is, has this genocidal mindset. And how is this going to, how is the West, or especially America, supposed to, convince the Israeli population you need another leader, another man to, take lead on this? I mean, has Netanyahu put his poison so deep that America has no control over this two-state solution from the Israeli side?
Well, certainly, exactly. This ongoing genocide in Gaza has brought the very worst of the whole Zionist project. It has totally exposed the murderous Zionist mindset and attitude. Even today I was listening to an interview with Professor Joel Mersheimer from Chicago, and he said something interesting that caught my attention. He said he quoted some public opinion survey which observed the demonstrations that were pro-Israel and pro-Palestinian. He said in the week from October 7 to October 13, 69% were pro-Palestinian and 31 were pro-Israel. He said now it's 95% pro-Palestine and barely 5% pro-Israel. And he was talking about a global public opinion. So again, the brutality and the all kind of murderous crimes committed in Gaza and in the presence of the social media, the YouTube, the Facebook, the Twitter, etc., Instagram, the whole world has come to see that what a Frankenstein is this Zionist entity. What have we done? And even today, I was reading a tweet by a lady from Australia, and she was saying, she said, and she put it like a dialogue with a child. She said, "Mommy, what is Holocaust?" And she said, well, this is a time when the Nazi, they carried mass murdering of the Jew. So the child asked, and what have we done? What have we done to stop the Holocaust? She said, well, at the time, nothing, but now we are doing everything to assist Israel in carrying on their own Holocaust. This brief exchange really, in a way, it summarized the increasing public opinion, global public opinion. Yesterday in the French Parliament, an MP in the French Parliament, he unfolded the Palestinian flag, and he was punished for it. He was suspended from the Parliament for 2 weeks. It's now making big news in France, so on and so forth. But the point is that the genocide in Gaza has exposed the very dark side of Zionism, and Israel has lost almost everybody in the public village, in the global village, and so this will go a long way. This will go a long way toward, in a way, driving the message to those right-wing extremist settlers in Israel, saying everybody is telling them to them enough. So that's, and again, this is what the center stage all of this confrontation now ongoing.
It was interesting. This is not in the Arab world, in the Muslim world. Yesterday in Mexico City, they started to burn down the Israeli embassy in Mexico City, and it's showing you that this is not an Arab issue. It's a Muslim. I mean, the whole world is seeing the sheer brutality of Zionism at its complete worst, and the response from Mexico or Colombia expelling the Israeli ambassador, saying trying to cut off all diplomatic relation. I mean, I don't think they could ever foresee that happening. They would see that maybe in the Muslim outer world, but not halfway across the world where they thought they had great relation. Now, going into
not only that, when it comes up to the ICC in the La Haye, to the point of issuing arrest warrant against Netanyahu, and the suit brought up by South Africa. And so overnight, Israel has no friend, and Israel has become another in a way, it has become another nation state. So this has been exposed to the whole global public opinion. Even Netanyahu was outraged that how dare you, when this Karim Khan prosecutor.
Well, the thing is, after that verdict, what does he do? I mean, they go out and they bomb so-called safe spaces where people who are displaced, and they 60 bombs.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, I mean, this is just they don't care.
That's right, exactly. But in a way, they're almost like in a quicksand. They're like they stumbled in a quicksand. The more atrocities they commit, they're trying to run ahead. But the more atrocities they commit, the more exposed they become. And this is something also was brought up by John Marsheimer. He said, look, what are you achieving? Okay, you could go in and destroy Gaza. You go in and destroy Khan Yunis. You go in and destroy Rafah. Okay, where will this get you? Where will this get you to the Israeli leadership? It will get you nowhere. Effectively, you have lost the battle. You have lost the battle. Killing, destroying, murdering. This is no gain. This is no victory. You cannot declare this to be a victory. It's not victory. You are losing, and that's what, again, in a way, is equivalent to what more or less what Blinken said today. Blinken said, Israel has the right to destroy Hamas, but Israel is responsible for the civilian. Should minimize the civilian casualties. And then ultimately, Israel has to come to terms with the day after. It all boils down to the day after. And that's what kind of Netanyahu desperately is trying to avoid, and not realizing that he is losing the game.
Going to the international community, the failure of the international community, specifically bodies like the United Nations, the International Criminal Justice Court, ICJ, the ICC, we've seen almost like a trifecta of supposedly, the international community's highest, level of enforcement against genocide and ethnic cleansing, and nothing's being done. And even it was threatened to the ICC, like, hey, the whole concept of ICC is to deal with guys like Putin and African dictators. So what does it showcase to the world about these organizations, which they're highly effective when they want to serve, it's just like America's agenda or European agenda, but all of a sudden when a true genocide is taking place, they're absolutely worthless.
Exactly. And this, what you mentioned really, it is what you just said, this all of this Israeli arrogance and attitude, so blatant and openly, it's a direct stab at the heart of the so-called the rules-based international order. Now, it has been all of this lie and hypocrisy, the so-called rules-based. What rules? What international order are you talking about? This is everybody now globally is saying this. What rules are? It has become obviously, and it's very evident that all of this UN Charter and ICC, ICG, the United Security Council, this is just fig leaf just simply meant to serve the colonial interest of the Western power. This is a naked truth. This is staring at everybody across the globe. So, and by the way, when it comes to let's not forget here that the whole Israeli Zionist occupation in Palestine from day one, going back all the way to Balfour Declaration, November 1917, Israel was simply implanted in the Middle East to serve the colonial interests back then of the British, and afterward inherited by the American after Second World War. So, and that, I mean, so this is now exposing the ugly truth of the imperial order that the Western leaders, led by America, are imposing on the whole world. This is the real issue here too.
Going back to the international community, for the Arabs or the Muslims who are strongly advocating for bodies like the UN, the ICC, ICJ, but have failed them. What lessons should they learn from this? Just I saw a very fascinating, funny tweet. Somebody put up a Muslim. He goes, asking the UN to help in Palestine is asking Iblis or the devil for my help and prayers. This was a statement, and this was tweeted a couple years ago, but it became popular as the reality hit the ground. Like when they try to seek these bodies to help them, nothing came about. So, what lessons should people learn?
Sadly, this is the worst. This is the worst of it all. I feel a great anguish and anger, really, when I hear those people around here seeking justice from the international community, asking the international community to this attitude. It's as if these people have learned nothing about the history, as if they haven't heard about the Balfour Declaration, as if they don't know that it was the British who implanted the Zionist occupation in our midst. So, and now when they demand this justice by international community, what international community? The one and United Nations, the resolution of United Nations Security Council. Who created this monster to begin with? Who created this monster called Israel in occupied Palestine? It was this international community. Again, going back to Balfour Declaration. Mind you, Balfour Declaration back in November 1917 carried no legal weight. Nothing. In November 1917, Palestine was under Ottoman rule, and Britain had no legal right whatsoever to declare or to give the Balfour Declaration, promising the Zionist movement in London that the British government will assist in establishing the Jewish homeland for the Jew in Palestine. The Britain had no business whatsoever in issuing this declaration. And mind you, and that's something, sadly, a lot of people overlook, a lot of people, including the leaders of Hamas, they somehow, I don't know how to express this. I don't fathom, I cannot fathom how they overlook this bare truth that if it weren't for the British endorsement of the Zionist movement in London back in 1917, there would have been nothing called Israel. Nil. The whole world would not have heard about all of this Zionist thing. So, and then again, to clarify for the audience, this Balfour Declaration, it only carried legal weight when it was integrated in the mandate issued by the League of Nations. League of Nations following World War I, League of Nations, they issued the mandate to Britain to govern the occupied territory of the Ottoman state. So they gave the mandate to Britain to govern Jordan or Palestine, and at the same time gave a mandate to France to govern Syria, the Syrian part, of which later on the French created Lebanon. It's another story. But so in this mandate, the Balfour Declaration was embedded, integrated in the mandate. Here comes in the so-called international law and all of that. According to this mandate issued by the League of Nations, now the establishment of a Jewish homeland in Palestine, and mind you, back then there was nothing called Holocaust. We're talking about 1920, 1921, so there was nothing called Holocaust. So it really I am really stunned when I hear these people asking international community to do us justice. It was also one remark here within this context. Look, now there is 140 countries. They have recognized the so-called the Palestinian state, the state of Palestine. 140 plus the Vatican. And yet, globally speaking, all of these 140 countries, they count nothing. Nothing. Until now, Ireland, Spain, Norway, and so on. Okay, now when it comes to the West again, we go back to the Western countries and world. Okay, now this became news. But the fact that 140 countries internationally, they have recognized the state of Palestine, it meant nothing. So it goes to show that this so-called rules-based international order has been exposed as a what to say? It's a fig leaf to cover and to serve the imperial colonial interests of the West, led by America.
Now going into your part of the world, we saw the axis of resistance. We've seen the Houthis blocking the Red Sea, and there was a lot of hope in Hezbollah from the north to add pressure to the to the Israelis to stop this ongoing genocide. And we see the other opposite, where America's warning Israel not to get tangled in the north as well, like where we see Israel's trying to make this war become larger, get America involved. Now, specifically for Hezbollah, how is Hezbollah's involvement? How has it affected the conflict, and what is the broader implication for Israel with Hezbollah as it stands right now?
Okay, now we are addressing the wider geostrategic view in the area. Let's not forget to begin with that whether it is Hezbollah in Lebanon or the Houthi in Yemen or the Iranian militia in Iraq, at the end they are all arms of serving the Iranian regime in Tehran. Sure enough, Hezbollah was founded and carried the banner of resistance because early on, before Israel had occupied back in 1982 with the Israeli invasion of Lebanon, Israel had occupied a stretch of Lebanon in the south of Lebanon, and Hezbollah engaged in the resistance fighting against the Israeli occupying forces, culminating in withdrawal of the Israeli forces in May 2000. So that, of course, that gave a big boost to Hezbollah popularity in the area. And then that was followed by the war in 2006, July 2006, between Hezbollah and Israel. But then again, the key point here to bear in mind that Hezbollah at the end is it's an extension of the Iranian regime. For that matter, now in these Arab areas, from the Mediterranean to the Arab Sea, south of Yemen, the Red Sea, the Persian Gulf, effectively the competition is between Iran and Israel. Israel has the ambition of governing this whole area from Morocco to the Persian Gulf, and Iran has the ambition of having a big chunk, whether it is in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, potentially Bahrain. And so Iran has this kind of nationalistic Iranian project to exert Iranian influence. So, but then at the end, the details of this are decided in Washington, D.C. Ultimately, it is Washington that decide who gets what of the pie. If you ask me about the Arab governments, the Arab leaders, so-called Arab leaders, each and every one of them, whether it is in Syria, Jordan, Libya, Egypt, so on, each and every one of them, the ceiling of his ambition is simply to be a king for life. That's it. You give him, he and his cohort, you give them some money to live lavishly in some luxury palaces and so on. That's, to them, this is it. They don't care a bit about liberation of Palestine or serving the people or building the nation. None of it. So this issue of Hezbollah, we come back to Hezbollah. It brings up the point now today. By the way, today I read in the news that the Houthi, they launched multiple ballistic missiles aiming at six ships in the Red Sea, in the Aden Gulf, and in the Mediterranean. This is the first time I read, this is something fresh, yani. This is the first time I read that the Houthi have targeted an Israeli ship in the Mediterranean. So, to answer your point directly, whether it is the Houthi or Hezbollah or the Iraqi militia, the Iranian militia in Iraq, sending drones and what have you, all of this under the ceiling, under the American ceiling. So that's why from early on, America has been keen on kind of preventing a big escalation with Lebanon, but at the same time, effectively turning a yellow light or a green light. It's okay for the militia in Iraq to send some drones or some missiles on to Israel, or from Yemen, because Yemen will not, even if Yemen the Houthi managed to strike whatever, a couple of ships and the like, it will not open up or escalate into a wider front, which is not the case with Hezbollah. Hezbollah has a direct border with Palestine, occupied Palestine, and Hezbollah has a very military capability and is capable of causing serious damage to Israel. So this is, but the central point here is that America has been the coordinator and coordinating, kind of in a way, the maestro, controlling who does what at one time. And even the late Iranian Foreign Minister Amir Hassan Abdulhayan, he said this beginning of January. He said America has sent to us 28 messages, 28 times, asking us not to escalate the confrontation with Israel. And
now I want to pivot in that. Something. So we know on April 1st, you see Israel going, trying to drag America or, make the war bigger than what it is. It targeted the Iranian consulate or embassy office in Damascus. And this is a significant blow. This is not proxy. This is you targeting something that's so-called sacred in the international community. You don't target embassies or ambassadors. So from April 1st to April 14th, when the Iranian retaliated, it was fascinating because it was, they could have struck overnight. They have all the intelligence in the world. What happened? In those 14 days, they set up a back channel through Oman, Iran and America. So they're relaying messages. America's telling Iran, hey, you can target this, but you cannot target that. Iran's giving, we're going to target this. Then it comes out, it was reported that Iran echoed its entire targets to UAE and Saudi, and they in turn gave it to the Americans. And it's extremely well orchestrated. America's there as the maestro as it's coming in.
Right.
What is the show of this? The Iranian resistance against Israel. No, and it's what boggles me is that since almost 15 years now, the amount of Israeli hits, whether it's targeting their nuclear program, assassinating scientists, cyber attacks on their centrifuge program, Iran just allows itself to get beat and beat and beat, and this last incident just shows the same. Is this exposing Iranians' true nature when it comes to what their role in the Middle East is?
See, that's what I said earlier. That ultimately, the whole competition here is Israel wants to have a bigger chunk in the area, and Iran is competing. So in a way, Iran wants her share from the in Syria, Iraq, Jordan, Lebanon, Bahrain, Yemen, possibly Kuwait, and so on. And like you said, yes, this is a clear example when Israel is always trying to raise the bar, frequently attacking Iranian terrorists in Syria, including the consulate, which is unprecedented. And then the Iranian response, as you said, was calibrated, orchestrated, coordinated with the American. But yet the Iranian response here, when they sent about 300 drone missiles and so on, ballistic missiles, even though the attack was met by the American forces, even though there wasn't major damage in Israel, nevertheless, the point was that Iran sent a powerful message to Israel that we have the capability. Because let's not forget here that Israel, always from day one, to the Israeli political leadership, for them to maintain the so-called the kind of the deterrence, that to them, first and foremost, the security of Israel as a state and society. This is the topmost criteria to them. Iran, when it launched this massive attack, it sent a message home to the Israeli people and leadership that we have the capability of hitting you right in the heart of occupied Palestine. So that time, okay, the Iranian response was calibrated, and the information was passed to the American. But next time, if Israel strikes another similar blow, next time the Iranian may not give such an advance notice of their response. And this opened the door down the road later on, in a month or two or more or less. It opened the door for a possible escalation from the Iranian side. Now the war in Gaza has been ongoing for 8 months, and so far neither Netanyahu nor the hot-headed far-right extremists, they haven't yet given in. They haven't been domesticated, if you will, to the American design. Then it may take another dose of severe strikes, stronger strike from the Iranian proxy, to finally for the Israeli society to say enough is enough. Let's settle down for some sort of a compromise or a settlement and bring this to a closure.
So, the potential of enough pressure being put on Israel that forces them to be on the negotiating table. So I want to bring up, pivoting from that the previous discussion about the Iranian strike. There is a jokes going around by political pundits, and we know the Iron Dome. They call it the Arab Dome because what the world witnessed on April 14th is that the Jordanian Air Force went out of its way to allow U.S., French, even Jordanian Air Force to go out there and try to dismantle as much rockets coming in. So when this is what the world is seeing, the treachery of the Arab rulers, where they are truly the IDF. They're truly the ones who are the ones defending the borders of Israel more than even the IDF's soldiers are. And when the world sees this, I mean, like, if you want to put pressure at the same time, they're witnessing they're witnessing the so-called Arab brothers, their neighbors, are actually out there entrapping them to be killed. When strikes are out there to put pressure on them, they're going out of their way. And even to the point in Jordan, when they were intercepting the missiles, I think about 3, 4 Jordanians died. They didn't even care where it landed. I mean, they went out of their way to make sure not a single nail went off an Israeli's finger. But when it came to their own people's, like, screw it. If a 1-ton bomb falls on them, or shrapnel, we don't care. I mean, what is the message this shows to the world?
Well, the treasury of the Arab rulers, it goes back all the way to 1916. 1916, before the Balfour Declaration. Maybe in 1916, what happened is that Sharif Hussein in Mecca, he joined hands with the British in declaring so-called Arab revolution against the Ottoman, in exchange for promises from the British that they will make him king of the Arab state after the defeat of the Ottoman. So, and that repeated itself since then till now. The various Arab rulers in Jordan, Syria, Iraq, Yemen, wherever. So this is their ambition. Their ambition is for their Western master to be pleased with him, to keep him a king or a prince or whatever, to keep him in power. He and his child, his grandson. This is the case. This is the case. This is the case in Jordan, in Syria, in Iraq, so on and so forth, in Saudi Arabia, what have you. So the Arab treasury didn't start last week or last year. After all, even though Britain, through the Balfour Declaration, promised to establish the Zionist settlement in Palestine, occupied Palestine, but Britain knew fully well that they could not protect this settlement. The protection of this settlement was carried out through two mechanisms. One, the so-called international law, because again, the Balfour Declaration was embedded in the mandate issued by the League of Nations. So it was this Jewish entity in occupied Palestine had the protection of international law on the one hand, but this wasn't enough. The second line of protection was through the Arab rulers in Egypt, in Jordan, in Syria, in Lebanon, and the rest of the area. So these rulers, they are the one who transformed this nation state into a prison. It's a police state, wherever you go, in Egypt, Syria, Jordan, Iraq, and so on. It's a police state. In Saudi Arabia, they are police state. Their role, and this applies today and yesterday. We are talking all the way 1940, 50, 60, 70, so on and so forth. So the state of Israel was declared on May 15, 1948. That declaration couldn't have happened if it weren't for the protection by the Arab rulers in Egypt, Jordan, Syria, Iraq, and so on. These rulers, they are the ones who suppress the people, who transform the society into a big prison, and using very brutal police state tactics. They have abolished and prevented the jihad farida. Make no mistake about it. Every Muslim, any Muslim, from Morocco to Indonesia to Malaysia to Kazakhstan, wherever, any and every Muslim would aspire to have the honor of participating in jihad. But then again, every Muslim now has to be to overcome the local suppression by the local governments. So this treasury is not new. And this, by the way, this is what explains, and this I'm saying this for the benefit of the non-Arab audience, because everybody will ask, oh, we are seeing what's happening, all these mass demonstrations across the globe, in Britain, in London, in Spain, in Norway, in New York, in America. What are the Arabs? Now you look across the Arab world, when you ask the question, what are those demonstrations in solidarity with Gaza? You will not find much. Why? This is the answer. The answer is the Arab world is ruled by these dictators, and these dictators, they are propped up by the Western leaders. This is the fact of the matter.
So years ago, in the past few decades, one of the excuses you would hear from in the Arab world was that Israel's the invincible army. We can't touch them. I mean, this was a notion.
Israel
was
what?
was the invincible army. They were so great you couldn't touch them. If they have nuclear bombs and whatever it may be. After October 7th, how has their security outlook changed? I mean, particularly regarding the whole concept of the invincible army, where 8 months in they still can't get Hamas. They've been exposed that their so-called Iron Dome is when you send out, was it like a $20,000 drone and to be intercepted by a $10 million missile, it just doesn't pay off. I mean, and we know Hezbollah in the north has,
forget that forget the drone and Iron Dome. Forget all of this. Forget all of this. I'm telling you, out and loud, and I repeat, let them have whatever they want. Let them bring the U.S. carrier or the whatever. Almost, I would almost say that for the Egyptian government or the Jordanian or if now the Egyptian president Sisi, if he openly says, okay, those who want to go for jihad to Palestine, let them go to Gaza. Let them go. I will not let him say, I will not send the Egyptian army, but the border is open. Let him say this. This is enough. Egypt, the population of 110 million people, Egypt alone can liberate Palestine. Jordan alone can liberate Palestine. Syria alone can liberate Palestine. So, drone or no drone, this is not so. And here lies the treachery of these rulers, of these dictators, and this is why I say, for that matter, this is why the West couldn't tolerate the rule of Dr. Mohammed Morsi in Egypt. He was supposedly elected by popular election, by democratic election, and yet the Western leaders, especially led by America, they figured out that this is too risky of a game. Initially, Obama had said, okay, let's try it out. But within a few months, he had a cold feet and changed his stand. So look at across the Arab world, the governments, they don't reflect or represent the popular will. None of it. So, that's what needs to be understood.
Got it. I want to go back to something that happened a few days ago. Interesting. CIA Director Bill Byrne, this is, I believe, in the Washington New York Times, he is reported that he was angry that the fact that it was Egypt that sabotaged a ceasefire deal. And the quote was, "We were all duped." And the quote was, Byrne was angry and embarrassed. The same person said, believing it made him look like he was in a loop or had been informed that the Israelis of the changes. Is the Egyptian intelligence, Egyptian government, so are they duping the Americans the other way around? It's continuing to show that America's out there trying to make a deal, and now they got sabotaged by the Egyptians, or tomorrow will be somebody else. What does this show the world when truly we know who calls the shot? It's not the Egyptians that dictate America; it's Americans that dictate the Egyptians on what to do. What does this indicate of a real ceasefire, a real solution taking place by the Americans?
Well, for the benefit of the audience, let's just to remind them that Egypt, since Camp David Accord signed between the previous Egyptian President Sadat and Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin, since then Egypt has become outside the confrontation with Israel. Egypt by the Camp David Accord reclaimed the Sinai Peninsula, which was occupied by Israel in the 1967 fiasco. Not war, it wasn't a war. So and so that let's Egypt is a big major powerhouse in the area. It has the largest army, the biggest country. So with the Camp David, Egypt was outside the equation, and the Egyptian president, their mandate or their mission became to suppress the Egyptian society. And that's what, including the Sisi. See, we know who Sisi is. You know, he assumed power in July 2013. It was after committing the bloody massacre in Cairo. And even now, there are about 60,000 political prisoners in Egyptian jails. And the Western governments are fully aware of this. And yet, and you may remember the statement by Trump, by praising Sisi. He said, "This is my good dictator." He
My
knows
favorite
he's a dictator. Yeah. Okay. So what happened now? This recent clash along the border. To begin with, let's remember here that between the border between Palestine and Sinai, the whole border. There is a portion of it which represents the border between Gaza Strip, and Egypt. This borderline, it stretched for 14 kilometers, kind of 9 miles. This is the border between Gaza and Egypt. This line, according to the Camp David Accord, they call it the Philadelphia area strip. There is details in the Camp David that regulate the military presence on both the Egyptian side and the Israeli side. And Israel, this military operation now in Rafah, Israel effectively have breached the Camp David Accord by sending tanks and all of this invading columns. And recently resulting in the killing of two Egyptian soldiers. And of course, everybody was asking, okay, what would be now the Egyptian reaction? It has been very meek, very mute. Even though Sisi had before boasted and announced anybody who dares touch Egyptian land or we will cut his hand, all of this, rhetoric, empty rhetoric. As it is, he swallowed his tongue, and he and his cronies they began saying, "Oh, this is a minor incident. We will not revise, the Camp David agreement." Even he didn't pull the Egyptian ambassador from Israel. So, and that, of course, now as we speak, the Egyptian street, the people in Egypt are boiling with anger and frustration at this defeated attitude by the Egyptian government. And that goes to confirm what I said earlier, that the Arab rulers in Egypt, Syria, Iraq, Jordan, and everywhere, their first task is to suppress the people. They are running a police state to serve the Western interests. They don't reflect. They are not. He didn't become ruler in Egypt or Jordan or Syria to reflect the popular mandate or by popular election. No, he is there to govern by brute force. It's a police state simply. Now, for how long will this go on? Now, I can say that the whole area is boiling. It's almost like a volcano, which will erupt. Because at the end, everything has a limit. Or it's just like pressure cooker. Everything has a limit.
This is what my next question was actually what you brought up. I was right going to pivot to this. History is, repeats itself, and this is a short history. Only 13 years ago, we saw the Arab Spring, and it created havoc throughout the Arab world, for the ruling elite class. 13 years on, not much has changed. The economic, the economics of the people's prosperity is worse now than was ever. Security, stability, you name it's worse. Then on top of that, what's happening in Gaza is sandwiched on top. Don't the regimes like Sisi, and his count and his likes fear like, hey, we may be, the next Arab Spring that comes, we may not be able to contain it, or it's going to go in a way that's not in our favor?
The answer to this question, and this is a crucial question, the answer lies in our hand. Meaning, okay, now so far we have talked at length about the Western leaders, imperial, colonial powers, America, Britain, fine. We have covered that. Now, it's time to look at the mirror. It's time to look at the mirror. Meaning, yes, these rulers, they don't have any legitimacy whatsoever. And as you correctly pointed out, the various socio-economic conditions are really driving people here toward frustration and anger. Good. So the question is, when and how will this manifest itself? Will explode and overturning the table on everybody? And the answer to it, again, is this is where we fall short in dealing with this historic moment. And to answer the previous question that I raised earlier, that how come we don't see mass demonstration in the Arab streets in Cairo, in Jordan, in Sudan, or Yemen, or Iraq, or Libya, Tunisia? Part of the answer that takes us back to the Arab Spring. The Arab Spring, with its various developments and events, have left a scar in the public cycle. Look at Syria, look at Libya, look at Yemen, look at Iraq. So look now at the interfighting in Sudan, and to Tunisia. So the Arab Spring, in a sense, has left this deep scar in the public cycle. However, this is not enough to explain what's happening. The key point lies in the opposition movement in the Arab street. They have failed to formalize a vision to lead the masses. I do believe and trust that the masses, the public at large, they are willing and ready to engage in a struggle and to sacrifice. The people around here, they have sacrificed heavily in the past decades, not only now, for the past decades. But then they didn't have the proper leadership, political leadership. A quick example here, say, Hamas in Gaza. Hamas is part of Muslim Brotherhood. Okay, and if we go to Jordan, the population in Jordan, over half of it is Palestinian. They come from Palestine. In Jordan, there is a strong presence of Muslim Brotherhood. What was the attitude or the position taken by Muslim Brotherhood in Jordan toward Gaza? They held some modest demonstration aimed at the Israeli embassy in Amman. That was kind of like a safety release valve to release to vent the popular anger and to show that you have done something. But that was very tepid and very mild and very weak, and not at all. It didn't rise to the challenge of the ongoing genocide in Gaza. To make it even worse, the speaker of Muslim Brotherhood in Jordan, Khalid, he, in his interview with CNN, the fellow from CNN asked him, when at the time there was this demonstration taking place at the Israeli consulate in Amman. He asked him, how far will you go in your demonstrations, in your protest? And he said, we are showing our solidarity with our brethren in Gaza. He said, okay. He asked him, okay, and then how far will you go? Will you put pressure against the Jordanian government? And he said, no. He said, our move, our action, our protest is meant to help the Jordanian government. So, and he further answered that the national interest of Jordan to us is foremost, is topmost. Nothing comes near it. So this is a joke. That's what I meant. The masses are more than willing to engage and sacrifice, but when they have such a leaders, then no wonder that we are getting nowhere. So that's what I said. We have to look at the mirror here and confront this issue.
Is this you can see the grays in your beard, so you have a lot of experience and knowledge, and seen stuff for that many of us haven't seen, right? Is this a pivotal moment for the Muslims where treachery is exposed we've never seen before? The ulama, the government, some say the scholar, for hires, where they're completely silent, or they're subjugating, they're pretty much reading off a printed sermon that is complete silence on the genocide. Is this a pivotal moment in the history of the Muslims where if you don't do actions now, it's going to a scary place? Like if you don't do anything now, or is it to a point where maybe potentially the thought bubble will burst? Like, what we need, the Muslims, wherever they are, Cairo, Dhaka, Beirut, we need to look at another way forward. Your thoughts?
See, this question, to put it in context and perspective. See, in all of this discussion we've had so far, say we didn't mention what happened in Syria. If we go to Syria, the amount of destruction and killing and murder and genocide, well, it's not genocide, but almost, the untold miseries in Syria, and yet, it's still ongoing. And this Bashar Assad, with the full blessing of America. Let's not overlook that. But then, what I'm saying here, my point is, when I said that we have to look at the mirror. Till now, after 13 years of the uprising in Syria, the Syrian opposition groups, they have failed to present a political vision for the state and society. Till now, as we speak, in Egypt, after 13 years of Rafah, or 11 years of what happened in Egypt back in 2013, till now, the opposition movement in Egypt, they have failed to formulate a clear political vision how to get out from this era of Sisi. And that's what I meant, that we have to look at the mirror. I have engaged in dozens and dozens and tons of discussion and various discussion with many groups across the land. And sadly, this central point is still lacking. It is still lacking. And even I will make it even. I will zoom out. I will zoom out. In my mind, it goes all the way back to early 80s. Back in the 80s, I used to pose this question to the brothers in the Afghani jihad, and I used to pose this question to them, the so-called the day after. I asked them, what is your vision for the day after? They said, okay, now you are fighting the Soviet communist occupation. Good enough, okay, with due time, you will be victorious. What is your vision for the day after? They had no vision. Unless and until unless and until we have this vision, where we have where we know where we are heading, what we want to achieve, and how to achieve it, then all the anger, frustration, whatever, all of this, what we have described, will get us nowhere. It will get us nowhere. We will be in the chasing ourselves in the same circle over and over again. And this is what's lacking. And this is a pivotal time that uh, Gaza, the genocide in Gaza, is time to bring us to our senses and really pose this question and answer them. It's time. If not now, when?
All right. I want to bring it on to the U.S. side, and not even U.S. This is a common theme that citizens of the country have been concerned about for the past 10 months, especially let's say in America. Many are convinced that it's Tel Aviv that's calling the shots in Washington, not the other way around. Uh, Same thing in England, France, that the people, the citizens of the country are concerned that their entire foreign policy is being dictated by Tel Aviv, even domestic policy. We've seen uh, orders like anti-Zionism is equal to anti-Semitism. This is something that's supposed to protect in the First Amendment, number one, but it's being pushed. We've seen the ban of TikTok, and before the issue was, oh, it was a PRC tool, the Chinese Communist Party tool. Now, blatantly, we've seen them come out. Oh, this is promoting the anti-Israeli narrative and going against First Amendment uh, platforms. What's your thought on this? Of people saying, "Hey, it's not DC that's dictating politics." Lately, it looks like it's Tel Aviv that's dictating DC.
Um, this brings to mind the answer given by the late American President Richard Nixon. He had an interview with Ted Koppel on ABC, and Ted Koppel asked him, he said that in your book, you say that Israel carries no strategic value to the US. And Nixon concurred, said yes. And Ted Koppel went on to ask him, said, okay, then how do you explain if Israel does not represent a strategic value to us, then why should we take the burden of defending Israel and protecting Israel, which will cause us a lot of burden on us? And Nixon answered that yes, even though Israel is not a member of NATO, it's not an ally under NATO, so we are not obliged to defend Israel. And even though Israel is of no strategic value, but still we have a moral obligation for the protection of Israel. And he went on to say that he said, you will not find any American president, Democrat or Republican, who will let Israel down. That was a wording by Richard Nixon. So now, Israel, by the way, it's I put it like the analogy of a thunder rod. You know, the rod that attract thunder. So in a way, the Western devilish plot, by implanting the Zionist colony in occupied Palestine, was to make it as such, like a thunder rod. So for the past decades, the whole politics in the Middle East has revolved around the issue of Palestine fighting Israel and which was propaganda and lies. None of the Arab rule. It was here very famous that any coup d'etat that takes place in Sudan, Libya, whatever, Yemen, Iraq, they will always say we want to liberate Palestine.
How does the ongoing conflict in Gaza affect the United States' strategic interests, specifically in the Middle East? And I'm sorry, the East Asia, where it was never in America's interest to, especially for the past almost like 15 years now, to deal with the Middle East. It's just to get out and focus your attention on Asia. Now you're seeing a tremendous amount of U.S. Operations, resources being pushed into the Middle East, and we've heard from top brass from the military, and even leaks like they're not happy with this. How does this? I mean, how is this going to impact their role in U.S. in their foreign policy with now in the past few months, which shows like they're back in the Middle East?
Well, we remember that in the first week of October 7, Biden administration rushed in sending, two aircraft carrier with the whole complex, and it was a massive military deployment. To send the message to see to it that we are here and everything is under our control. Yet, at the same time, Biden had insisted that Israeli leaders have to accept the two-state solution. As a matter of fact, Biden had met with Netanyahu back on September 27th in New York. Biden till now has refused to invite Netanyahu to the White House. He hasn't received him at all. So, but yeah, he met with him on September 27 in New York, and he asked him that. He told him that you need to go along with the two-state solution, something that Biden has stubbornly refused. But then Netanyahu, kind of in his calculation, he thought he could bank on the solid support in the American political class, whether in the Congress or in the Senate, both among the Republican and the Democrat. Yet this ongoing genocide that has been taking place in Gaza, with almost a blind support by Biden administration to the Israeli atrocities, knowing that Israel is committing these crimes using American weapons and ammo, so that really has brought to headlight the hypocrisy and the lies of the American policy. When even Biden in his interview with CNN last March, he said, okay, there is a red line, that and various American officials, they had opposed the military operation in Rafah, supposedly out of fear that it will cause massive civilian casualties. Okay, but then day after day, Israeli moved on to Rafah. They have now already carrying incursion directly in the center of Rafah, committing various massacres, including the bombing of the camps, resulting in 45 civilian deaths. Even because we know at the beginning, when the Israeli operation started in North Gaza, they said, okay, move on to the safe area in Rafah. First, they send them to Khan Yunis, and then they send them to Rafah, where Rafah ended up having about 1.4 million of Palestinian refugees, and now they are attacking Rafah with all U.S. weaponry and ammo. And even yesterday, when John Kirby, he was asked, okay, this is all of this murder that happened in Rafah, isn't this a breach of the red line announced by Biden? He said no. He said so far that it's a minor incursion. This was repeated by John Kirby, was repeated by Matthew Miller, and even was repeated by Jack Sullivan. All of them, no, all of this ongoing murder, even murdering children and tents and all that, and attacking hospitals, all of what has happened has not amounted to breaching the red line boasted or mentioned by Biden. And by the way, this brings up to memory, the infamous red line of Obama back in 2013 in Syria. He cautioned and warned that the Syrian leader Bashar Assad, Obama had cautioned him that he said, if you use chemical weapons, this is a red line. Okay, so Assad used it in August 2013. He used it. And we know what happened with Obama. He made a U-turn, because this is his boy. Bashar Assad is his boy. So at the end, Biden, he he will he will not lose sleep if 50,000 or 100,000 children, women, whatever, if they are murdered by his weapon and his ammo. But then this bring up really, it's bring up, but to say it's a question of where the American political class stand, where the American people stand.
Okay,
Supposedly,
okay, the American this one. I want to get your perception of this. So in America, the past few weeks, the encampments at universities, some of the most prestigious universities in the world, Harvard, Columbia, UCLA, we've seen protests like that echoes of the Vietnam era. Now, what the world witnessed is student, faculty, and thousands of Jews who are against Zionism out there being brutally attacked by the police. You had sniper rifles on the roof pointing guns at university students and faculty members.
mhm.
What image does this show the world of the country that's, that champions freedom throughout the world? And when they see this, what, in the Arab world, the world where you live, what does this echo, these images?
What does it echo to the Arab world? You are asking?
Yeah. How do they view this?
Well, certainly, and this happened not only in America but also across Europe. As I mentioned yesterday, the French MP, he unfolded the Palestinian flag in the parliament. This is obvious that there has been a global uh, um, flood of support for Gaza and solidarity with Gaza. This is true. But at the same time, let's remember here that all of this public protest, they don't ultimately they don't affect the decision being made by the political leaders in the Congress and the White House. And for that matter, let's remember what happened in 2003. Back then, the whole world erupted in demonstration in protest against George W. Bush uh, plan to attack Iraq back then, and he didn't care. He didn't mind. He went ahead with his invasion of Iraq. So, on the one hand, yes, this was happening. All of this demonstration in solidarity with Gaza, it sent a powerful message to the Arab state that your cause is just, and you have this a global public opinion supporting you. But then it comes to what to say, to expose the dilemma in the Arab societies, because namely that, okay, the question is like, why don't you see such a mass protest in Egypt or Tunisia or Jordan or Iraq or we don't see that, because again we go back to facing the reality. We live in this police state. We live in the police state on the one hand. On the other hand, that the events of the Arab Spring in a way has left this scar, and coupled with the lack of the uh, political leadership among the opposition standing up to the challenge of what's happening in Gaza. So you have this combination of factors.
I want to talk about other external actors, specifically China and Russia. Are they taking? I mean, they're probably this is the reality. Are they taking advantage of America's current position, horrible position as worldwide? I mean, do you see China attracting the global South, saying, "Hey, there's no point of being with Americans. You could be there. Just see what happens. What they're doing out to the people in Gaza." For Russia, is this improving their images? Improving their global image that are out there? Because we've seen in multiple times UN, Russia, and China take this stance. I mean, like it's giving them a very nice image compared to the Americans in the past few months. In your opinion, do you see them taking advantage of this, or can they take real advantage of it?
Well, when it comes to China, China has a different calculus here. China really doesn't project herself as being a world leader. China has no ambition whatsoever of playing the global cup role, has none of it. China has no ambition of becoming the hegemon, the global hegemon. China is busy in expanding her commercial economic interests, yes, various commercial benefits across the continent, Latin America, Africa, the Middle East. Yeah, the Chinese are busy expanding their economic footprint, various projects, that's true, which is different, say, from the immediate area in South China and the South China Sea. There's different dynamics there. So that's for China. As for Russia, Russia is engaged in Ukraine, but then again, let's remember that Russia, when it came to the uprising in Syria, it was Russia who used the veto power at the United Nations Security Council. Russia invested heavily in supporting the dictator Bashar Assad. So Russia has lost its credibility in the Arab street. But yet also Russia is benefiting from Gaza to kind of shed the light on the Western, especially the American, blind support of Israel. So even yesterday, Putin in an interview, he said that the America wanted to create another Israel in Ukraine. That was a remarkable statement from Putin. So in other words, justifying his campaign in Ukraine, he said, I had to be proactive and prevent this American drive to implant another Israel in Ukraine. So that's when it comes to Russia and China. That's what they stand. They don't really, when it comes to the Arab areas, they are not influential, especially when it comes to political influence or decision.
What about the hurting the soft power of America? As long as
this is a given. This is a given. This is even yes, true. And both China and Russia, they don't need to do much. They don't need to do anything. The so-called American soft power is forget it. It's shut. It's shut. It's finished. There is no soft power. And in the previous question, I was alluding to this. Actually, I wanted to say that when John Kirby, when Matthew Miller, when Jack Sullivan, so blatantly they deny or how do they have the gut to stand up and facing the reporter's question? Everybody was asking them, isn't it enough? When will you consider that Israel has crossed a red line? And John Kirby said no. Even when they asked him what happened to the I think that question was posed to Matthew Miller. They asked him what happened to 1.4 million civilians in Rafah. Wasn't Israel told them to move to the safe area? What happened to them? He said, okay, some of them went to Khan Yunis, some of them went to Mawasi, some of them. Like he couldn't care less. He couldn't care less. So this soft power is finished. See, this is America has lost big time. All of this soft power, forget it. Until recently, America had managed to deceive the global public opinion. Let's not forget here that America doesn't have until recently the colonial legacy of Europe, the British colonial, the French, the Dutch, the Belgium, the Spanish. America in the Middle East and the global South in Africa didn't have this colonial legacy. But since 9/11, the invasion of Afghanistan, of Iraq, the scandals of Abu Ghraib, of Guantanamo Bay, of Bagram in Afghanistan, American soft power has been shot, finished, has been totally demolished. They 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 had they don't dare now. Nobody can stand up to try to defend American. No way. This is finished. And even uh, this Statue of Liberty in New York, they should take it down. It's a shame. It's a disgrace. When we hear the statement coming from Matthew Miller or John Kirby and the like, this is how do they justify all of this genocide taking place in Gaza? Soft power is history. No more.
I
No
always
more.
thought
Now we are facing the ugly beast straight on.
I always thought Ari Fleischer was the secretary, press secretary for Bush. I thought how he could, how he could just sleep at night, just justifying what he did in the, in the war on terror. But I mean, John Kirby and his likes. I mean, I don't know where you find these people. I mean, we call scum to scum. The last question to you, from a history, what lessons can be drawn from past conflicts in the region, in the Muslim world, that are applicable to the current situation today?
Well, see what's happening in Gaza. Of course, it's so horrible in its magnitude. But then again, see compare it to what happened in Syria. Compared to what happened in Syria, you will end up with a wider picture. At the end of the day, this is the naked truth facing us, that these regimes in Syria, Jordan, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the Gulf, in Morocco, and so on, these regimes, they are servient to the Western powers, and they are the one who protected this Zionist settlement in occupied Palestine. And the events, especially now in Gaza, has exposed the lies and hypocrisy of the so-called rules-based international order, of the so-called, all the rhetoric and gimmick they used to promote, that they care about human rights and freedom, democracy, all of these so-called values that they have been exposed in broad daylight in the massacres taking place in Gaza. Then again, to come back to our task, it is we have to look at the mirror. It's our challenge to rise to this moment, and it's our duty to break loose of this Western world order, and to realize that our freedom and liberty will only come by establishing our will, and not seeking justice from the so-called international law or international society. And this, so ultimately, the ball is in our court, really. Now everything has been exposed and in broad daylight. There's no reason no more to say, oh, well, we don't know, we are confused, and no, none of it. It's the ball is in our court. That's a challenge we have to confront and undertake, and our responsibility ultimately.
Thank you, Dr. Bakhach, for your time, and for all the subscribers, and for anyone watching new, remember to subscribe so you're up to date with the latest video. Thank you very much.
Thank you.